Hey, this is Gareth Dyke. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Budayeno. It's 9 o'clock in the morning in New York. It's late night in China. We are back for another live training session, experimenting, testing, and trying out LinkedIn Live. Thank you so much for joining me. In this session, we're going to start with a story as we demonstrate the kinds of training, the kinds of things that TopEdit can do for your business, helping young researchers to understand the publication process. Everybody loves a story. I'm going to start this presentation with a story from my dear old father, who used to teach us when we were children not to get stressed about the overall picture, all of the things that we had to do, all of the work that we had to do, all of our homework. He used to talk about, and he still does talk about, bless him, the drip feed approach, where you take things one task at a time. I started working 25 years ago in academic research, academic publishing, and I applied this method. Thanks to my dear old father, I was able to be effective at writing and publishing my own work. Over the years, I published more than 280 academic articles, doing it bit by bit. And so when I transitioned, when I started working in author services a few years ago, I was surprised to learn that more academic authors are unaware of this technique. We are engaged in, aren't we, in the publishing industry, helping young researchers to be effective writing and publishing their work, as the marketing guys, the insurance salesmen, the business guys, the CEOs who don't really know all that much about academics like to say. We are looking for pain points. What that means in academic terms are the issues that young researchers face in the writing and publishing process. Who better to identify those? Well, people who have experience working with young researchers. And we do this at TopEdit. We talk to young researchers all over the world, all of the time, and they tend to ask us the same kinds of questions. How to write. Why should I be writing? Why should I be writing and publishing my research? And how can I get started? How can I write in English? And we know that for many people, English is not their first language. It's not their second language. It might not even be their third or fourth language. How to write in English is a huge issue for young researchers all over the world, of course. So we have to help people to be effective. We also have to train people with this kind of training, with these kinds of sessions, why they're writing and publishing their research. And we also help people to understand structures around writing to get going, things to do before you start. And I'll give you some examples in this presentation also of the kinds of frequently asked questions that young researchers have, that people come to us and ask us. We have thousands of these now in our database because we reach out directly to young researchers around the world, in China especially, and help them on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a minute-by-minute basis with their writing and publishing issues and with their writing and publishing projects. I'll start then this training by talking a little bit about how to write. From my own personal experience, here are three heroes of mine. And you've heard of Winston Churchill. Maybe you haven't heard of the other two English writers, but let's start with Winston. He's famous, of course, for mobilizing the English language, sending it into battle, as Kennedy used to say. Winston, we know his writings. He used this wonderful language as a tool to inspire people, to get people up and moving and interested, and to convince them of his point of view, which of course is what you need to do, what young researchers want to do with their writing and publishing as well. The other two are my own heroes, really. Hadley Freeman, a Guardian journalist, and a great writer called A.A. Gill, who's sadly not with us anymore. I use Hadley's writings in my training courses for young researchers around the world because she taught me in her writing that when you start to put down something in English, when you start to write down something in English, you write it down exactly as you think, and then you edit it later. And this is such good advice for young researchers who don't speak English as a first language, who face issues with writer's block, with confidence in their own writing. Think in English, write in English a little bit every day, put that down, and then edit that later. English, effective English, is short and simple. Keep it simple. That's the best way to be effective in this written form, in this language. And A.A. Gill, another hero of mine, he also suffered from severe addiction issues. I can relate to that myself in my life. He never wrote down much of his writing. He spoke into a dictaphone, into a microphone, and then transcribed his wonderful travel writing, his cookery columns, his food and restaurant reviews from transcription. So you don't need even to be a good writer. You don't need to be able to write. That's the message from this. Confidence, we can teach you. How to do it, we can teach you. Write as you think, and we can show you how to use English, how to use this language to get your message across. People ask us in our training, what is plain English? In some languages, in French, in Russian, students are taught to be complicated. Use long words, use complicated phrases. It will make you look more intelligent. It will make your writing more impressive. In English, no, keep it simple. Commentators identify 6 features of good plain English, and they share similar views on these. Short sentences, no unnecessary words, use familiar words to your readers, don't confuse them, don't get them into that cognitive bias trap where you assume that your readers know everything that you know about a particular subject. And here's one debated area, but we teach people to use the active voice rather than the passive voice in their academic writing. Many journals, if not most academic journals, now encourage writers to use active voice in their writing. Many style guides for international journals specify this. There are situations, of course, where you won't want to do that, but in our training, we can teach style, we can teach punctuation, we can help non-English speaking ESL writers, young researchers, to understand the difference between these ways of writing and when it's better, more appropriate, and a better way to communicate, to put their writing into active versus passive voices. Teaching plain English, teaching communication, teaching people how to be the best that they can be with their language and with their paper writing. How to write is one thing, and we offer training on that. In that area, of course, many of our colleagues in China use our training courses all the time to learn how to write in English. Why to write an academic paper is a different question altogether. And of course, this is something, one of the areas, one of the black boxes often forgotten by the publishing industry. Academics, researchers, PhD students, master's students, they change their motivations depending upon career stage. My motivations as an established academic for publishing my research will be quite different to those of a master's student or a PhD student. The young researchers, the future of our industry, have different, quite distinct motivations for getting their work published than more established academics, maybe to get their PhD, maybe to get their masters, to develop their research and development. And people always forget that, of course, the motivations for young researchers are quite different to the motivations for editors and peer reviewers. Editors at high impact journals, as we all know, are looking for readers. They're looking for people who will download, will cite articles. So young researchers don't know this, and we can help, we can train, we can provide insights in our courses to help young researchers understand the publishing and the publication process, because that helps everybody. We provide an experience, a better experience for young researchers. We increase our authorship. We get the number of submissions to international journals up, and we make the process easier for researchers. We make the process more enjoyable. How to write, why to write, and what to do to get started, because of course, as Jared Kushner recently said, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there, a quote that comes from Alice in Wonderland. We teach authors to think before they write. Don't get caught in that writer's block, stick jam where you can't do anything, where you're just typing and not making any progress. Ways to structure your writing experience and things to think about before you get going. What to do. Think about your message, what people are going to get out of your paper, what people will gain from reading your academic article, who the audience are, which journal are you going to select. Many, if not most, successful academic publishing researchers select their target journal before they start to write, because that gives them the structure. That helps with the message, and it tells them what they need to do and what they shouldn't do in the writing itself. So message, audience, and structure are key messages for young researchers to help them get started on that writing process, not flying blind, being efficient, being effective, and getting the best out of the publishing and writing experience. We also find, of course, that many, if not most, young researchers are unaware of what happens in the article submission system. What happens when papers first go into academic journals? The first step of article submission, just like getting hit by a bus. You go to the emergency room, the doctors triage you, they decide what's going to happen to you next. And of course, it's no different in article publishing. Editors, desk editors, they select papers that will be good for peer review, that will be readable, that will be citable, that will be interesting to their journal and to their readership. So these kinds of things are not known to young researchers, and so we enhance their experience of the publishing process by training them based on our own experience, how to sell your research and get it successfully through editorial triage. And so, having said that as well, it's important to explain which different kinds of editors are which, because there's also a huge difference between someone like me who works on the language in a paper, editing, language polishing academic articles, and an editor who makes desk decisions, somebody who's making the executive decisions at the journal, a professional editor potentially, about what should be sent for peer review and what should not be sent for peer review. The name is the same, so researchers often don't know who they're interacting with, how to communicate, what they can and can't do, and what they can and can't say to academic editors at different stages of the process. So our goal at TopEdit is to help authors crack the process and understand what's happening so that they can enhance, they can enjoy, they can be more successful at academic writing and publishing. Here's a few frequently asked questions that we often get from young researchers. And as I mentioned at the start, we have thousands of these questions now in our database from daily contact with young researchers, especially in China, about their issues in academic writing and publishing. For example, how many words in the different sections of my paper? People don't know. They don't understand how to balance the writing in their academic articles, what the average lengths should be for different submissions, and how to structure and write the different sections. Of course, this is not a training on academic writing or academic structure. We can provide that. Of course, if you get in touch with us, we will give you access to all kinds of training in writing and structuring academic articles. But basic questions about how to put a paper together often elude young researchers because no training is given in these areas before writing in many cases. Practical tips, including another frequently asked question, which tense, how to write which tense in different sections. Seems basic to those of us with experience writing and publishing, but many young researchers don't know what to do in the different sections of their papers, what to put in different bits, which tense to write in, how to put that across to a reader, bearing in mind that very often people forget that the reader, the person experiencing their academic article, is the fundamental person, the key reason why we write academic papers, not to pin them to the wall, not to stick them on the notice board, but to get readers, get citations, and get our work into those leading international journals. Another black box, another frequently encountered area of confusion, of course, is around peer review. We all know this. In the publishing industry, we try to address this, but still, very little training is made available to young researchers in what to expect when their papers go into academic journals, how to manage peer review, and indeed how to do peer review when they're asked to by journals. They feel intimidated by the whole process. And of course, peer review is a hugely important transferable skill. You think about, 5% of academics doing PhDs and master's courses will end up working as academics in their future careers. What happens to the other 95%? Peer review as a skill can be tooled, can be trained to young researchers by us in the publishing industry to provide a key transferable experience for people to use in their lives, in the world of work, in the future. So we look at issues. We try to help pain points for young researchers. And another common one is, of course, plagiarism. Dealing with academic plagiarism. People are often unaware that they are doing it, even taking the work of others without appropriate citation. We identify 3 different kinds of academic plagiarism in our analysis of this area, and the most common, the most difficult for authors to understand is, of course, the fact that you can steal from yourself in your academic writing, using your own text, your own figures, your own content that you've published previously in another academic article. So training is desperately needed across academic plagiarism for authors to understand what happens in the process. First language, second language, you read something, you think, ooh, that sounds great, and you use it in your work in the future. I've done it, you've done it. We need to help young researchers to avoid this area in the future. And that's why bulletproofing, waterproofing work, dealing with inadvertent plagiarism in the early stages of the workflow, in the early stages of the editing workflow, in the case of companies like ours, TopEdit, helping authors free of charge to get a plagiarism check done on their work. So get in touch with us if you're listening to this, you're an author and you want to get your work checked for plagiarism after this presentation. We can help. We can bulletproof, waterproof your work to make sure that you don't have issues when you submit it to those international journals. Here's another common one, just an example of the kinds of content that we push out to our hundreds of thousands of Chinese young researchers that follow TopEdit every day, dealing with day-to-day issues in the publishing workflow, in the publishing process. My paper got rejected. What should I do next? There aren't that many companies that are able to help young researchers in the way that we do. So if you're a publisher, if you're a society, you'd like to talk to us about how we can help you to engage with young researchers in China in particular, then please get in touch with us at some point after this presentation. TopEdit author services have a huge fan base in China. Young researchers who are, of course, the future of this industry. Other companies, stuffy, old-fashioned, don't have the connections, the roots, the contacts, the young researcher base that we have in China. So we can help you to engage with this core audience for your journal, for your society, going forward to up your authorship, to increase your profile, and to get those quality papers, English language edited, into your journal, and to enhance that author experience. Above all, the most important people in our workflow are the authors and the ultimate readers of the papers that we publish. Editing and translation, consultancy, education, and training, as you've seen in this presentation this afternoon, this evening, or this morning, depending upon your time zone. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Gareth Dyke, TopEdit Author Services. Please get in touch with us if we can help or provide any more information about the way that we work or how we can help you around the world, but especially in China. Thank you so much for listening.